Hi guys, we're soon getting started. I just have a few quick questions for you.
Let's go.
Don't think too much, 5 seconds. Give us your most unpopular sales opinion, Alex.
Oh, it's me. My most unpopular sales opinion, the idea that that technology can replace individual performance and effort, probably.
Alexander, what's the biggest sales BS you've heard this year?
That sales is 100% numbers game.
Is it not?
Fill in the blank. Sales would be 10 times better if...
Sales would be 10 times better if everyone bought everything the first time they heard about it.
What's the strangest objection you've overcome?
Ooh. That's a very good one. The strangest objection. It's blank.
Here, I got one for you. So I'll answer this question.
Go ahead.
I once had an economic buyer that I was working with for a long period of time, and he said that he needed to consult with one of the owners of the company. And then I called and checked in on the conversation like a week later, and he said that they were not moving forward with us. And I shouldn't be laughing because I don't know if it was true or not, because the person that he had to check with had died over the weekend.
Oh, whoa.
Which I don't think is accurate.
Interesting.
That's why I think it was BS, to be honest with you. But maybe. Who knows?
Crazy BS.
Yeah. I never checked on it. I just took his word for it, I guess.
Okay, you get a new chance. If you were not in sales, what would you be doing?
Probably something with my hands. I love building stuff and going crazy on that. I've been renovating my house, which also, did a lot. So I think the whole sort of building opened up a lot of doors for me.
Most overhyped sales tech?
Most overhyped sales tech. Oh, controversially, AI.
If your sales strategy had a theme song, what would it be?
See, I want that question.
Oh, that's a good one, huh? I think the Rocky theme song. I think that's a pretty powerful one.
What's the fastest way to lose a deal?
I mean, there's kind of two answers. I think the most business appropriate answer is the fastest way to lose a deal is to not properly engage with all critical stakeholders. But I think that passively, the other thing is to overestimate where you are from a progression standpoint.
What's one work habit you swear by, even if it's a little weird?
Working a bit like a scientist. If we're not like curious and actively seeking new opportunities and trying to test things out and see if it works, if it did, keep it. If it doesn't, toss it and then do something else, then we are really not striving towards excellence. Then it's going to be really hard to be great.
And the last one, first app you open in the morning. Be honest.
The first app I open in the morning. I mean, this is a terrible answer, but it's usually Slack.
Ooh.
Yeah.
All right, let's get started.
Let's go.
Just to make sure we've got it. So, thanks everyone for joining us. This is Revenue Rebels. This is Alexander Stephenson from Hello Retail. He's joining us today. My name is Alex as well, which won't be confusing at all. And we're at our Get Accept headquarters here.
Very nice office.
Yeah, thank you. To talk about a lot of things, but mostly I think, and why a lot of people are joining us is to talk about the B2B sales funnel and kind of the sales funnel as a whole, buyer behavior as a whole, and different things that we can do, and just thoughts that we have that can hopefully help influence progression of opportunities, identification of opportunities, and maybe rethink the way that we as sellers at organizations like Get Accept or Hello Retail, and hopefully yourselves, are approaching the buying journey and the selling journey as a direct part of that.
Very, very important topic.
How do we make sense of that? How do we properly approach it? I've got topics, and I want to hit those for sure, but I think that maybe a good starting point for you would be, it'd be good to understand, like, what has the experience been for you, like on the floor, as a sales leader, navigating that kind of in real time? Like, what are some like big key takeaways in terms of how your process has changed and how you have changed how you communicate to your sellers.
Yeah, I can take you maybe a bit of a step back on how I landed into sales in the first place.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
Because I think everybody somehow comes into sales by accident.
Yeah.
For me, it was more a feeling of being sick and tired of being sick and tired. So I used to be an introverted warehouse assistant, just stacking boxes all over the place and like scanning IT equipment I couldn't really afford myself. And I was just sick and tired of that. I was like, okay, I cannot live this way. I have ambitions, I want to do stuff, I want to get out there and really like change. So what's the hardest thing I can do right now? And that was for me, B2C, cold calling in the middle of dinner to insurance, or to sell insurance, which was maniac when you think about it.
Yeah.
Like it was the best sending hour to spend with your family, and then I was calling. So we did around probably 250 dials in the span of 4 hours. It was ridiculous. It was
You
just like
individually or you
individually.
Wow.
So we did like we had like a power dialer. It was like ridiculous, extremely low conversion as well. But we'll get back to that.
Yeah.
And then I sort of stumbled my way into that, and it was terrible. Like I remember the first call so vividly. Like I was stuttering. I said like, "Hey, it's Alexander from," and then I kind of stalled, and then I changed the company name with my own name, and it was a mess.
Nice.
So it had to be done a bit differently. But then I had some good leaders to help me and guide me through the journey, and ultimately got me curious on sales in general. I thought like, oh yeah, you're just born with it, or you sort of you can't learn it. It's a natural thing. You need to be extroverted, high, pitch and loud volume and all of that.
Yeah.
But I feel like sales has become much more sophisticated, and that's also why I've been able to seize the opportunities during the way. And then I was fortunate enough to join a company where I think I was employee number 29, and I was one of the first SDRs, and then like in tech sales before it was like, a thing, and really had a lot of cool people around me. It was so cool just to sit next to the CEO and just be like, hey, I suck. Can you give me some honest feedback so I can do better? And then he was like, yeah, I'll listen to a few calls. And then he did. And then ultimately, 3 calls in, he was like, that's terrible. And it just sits with me. Yes.
You're with the CEO, no less. So
Exactly.
The person who runs the entire company is with an employee of his, and he's learning in real time that you're really bad at your job. Perfect.
That's it, right? So I got tomato red, and I was like, okay, crazy, but I feel like this is a learning experiment.
Yeah.
Let me just take in what you're saying. So I took in a few things and implemented right away. And then things started to pick up. And then, 10 months later, I was an AE. And then, a few months plus tax, 18 months or so, 2 years or something like that, I went into the team lead role. And then did the head of sales Europe, and then head of global sales excellence, and then I went to Hello Retail.
Let's pivot away from us as sellers, and instead look at it from the buyer side, right? So if you were to say right now to your average buyer, obviously if it's a sales leader, they're comfortable with the idea that people are going to be doing pretty aggressive prospecting.
Yes.
That's universally recognized and understood. But strangely, even though that's true, and we talked about it earlier, even though it's true that I'm aware that every company in existence is aggressively trying to sell as much as they can, because that's their job as sellers,
Yes.
somehow I'm still disappointed and frustrated when I receive that type of prospecting. And so what is kind of the general perspective, in your opinion, of the buying landscape, of the buyer journey? Like, what are the critical differences right now when we think about what buyers are thinking when we're doing this type of prospecting into them? Whether it's, mature, articulated, well-researched prospecting or not, my argument would be that it still is a very different environment. And obviously, I said earlier, I think part of it comes down to trust, but how do we engage with those buyers, and what perspective or expectations do they have as buyers now that's different than the way that it was previously?
Like we talked about earlier, like everything has a solution. Every problem has a solution right now.
So how do you stand out with yours?
Yeah.
I think people spend way too much time trying to understand their side of the table instead of actually asking their clients directly. Like, they have all the answers. Why don't we have like somewhat of a buyer persona exercise where we sit in on CSM calls and ask them a few questions like, why did you actually buy from us in the beginning? What were some of your concerns that you were reserved about when you were going through the process, and how have you seen the value being delivered to you? Like, what's the number one thing that stands out when our company name is mentioned? Is it good? Is it bad? And then sort of have small questions where you gather like feedback from different places, but asking the client.
Yeah.
I think we do that too few times, and we make a lot of assumption, like the buyer is like this and this is how it goes typically, but do we really understand? Or is it just like an assumption that we just made up because we saw something in ChatGPT or on the internet or on Instagram or Twitter or TikTok or whatever, right? Like, information is not the thing right now, but relevance is really the key. That's the top thing. And that's also why the mass distribution of cold calling or mass distribution of anything doesn't work any longer. It needs to be relevant, like why now kind of thing.
Yeah.
Why should they care about this thing?
And this is something, it's interesting that you say that, because I was listening to a presentation that the CEO of HubSpot had a couple of years back when he was talking about, HubSpot, of course, they created their own version of the funnel, the flywheel, not the traditional B2B sales funnel, but the flywheel. And that's like a very hot to trot kind of communication statement in marketing circles, for good reason, because the buying journey is no longer linear. It's not a we start here, we qualify, we set, that first demo qualifies out, we move on to making sure we're engaging the correct stakeholders, making sure we're moving through the buying process, handling decision criteria, paper process, all of those things are included. Customer signs off, boom, we're done. We did it, it's over. Now it's like, okay, well, now there's multiple different components. And I say all of this to say, like, one of the things that really stood out to me is he answered some question. I don't remember what question it was. And, I'm not going to direct quote by any stretch of the imagination, but specifically it was around how does he buy?
Yeah.
And this is what I think about a lot as a sales leader, is not how do I get my team to sell more effectively, but how do I buy? How do they buy?
Exactly.
If they're thinking to themselves, how am I going to sell? It should be, how would I be sold to? How am I buying? And what are the things that are influencing me the most?
Yeah.
And I think it comes down to, right now, there's such an increased emphasis on third-party validation of services. And by third-party, I don't mean somebody you don't know necessarily, but maybe it can be a company you're familiar with. We talk about this. We use MEDPIC framework. I'm sure many companies do. There's nothing new or interesting or unique that hasn't been spoken about regarding that. But one of the things that we talk about is the requirement to have M1s and M2s, right?
Yeah.
Making sure that we have customer stories that communicate a value. And I think that this has become an increasingly critical part of the process when we're talking about activation from prospect through like actual opportunity creation to close.
Yes.
Is this something that resonates with them? Yeah, probably. But do they trust me enough? Not necessarily. Or have I contacted them enough? Is my messaging unique enough or interesting enough to keep them hooked? More often than not, it seems to be, if someone that they respect, another company that they respect, purchases something, then that is the thing that makes that really critical conversion difference, which puts an emphasis on not only the individual reps being able to sit in on those CS meetings like you're talking about and cultivate those customer stories and identify which components of those conversations they think stand out, and they can pull into other scenarios where their other team members can. But also on top of that, that they understand exactly what's happening, which is really that business acumen component coming into play.
I feel like that has been increasing lately.
Yeah.
It's also, we're back to assumption again, like most sellers are often thinking that they will be part of the full buying process. And every step they are there, like somehow, some way, but we are only, like I read some crazy stat about it, we only present for 3% of the buying process.
Yeah,
3%.
this is the Harvard Harvard's or Gartner, excuse me,
Yes.
study that was done, right? That says, and we love this. I think we've got a slide. I'm sure a lot
Yeah,
of companies do, right?
it's a good one.
Sellers are only involved in 17% of the
There you go.
purchasing decision.
I knew there was something.
17%. And what's interesting about that is that's not you as a seller. That's not get accept, okay, or Hello Retail. We're not saying you get 17%. We're saying all sellers that are involved in any decision-making process, 83% of that process happens behind closed doors.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and 17% is split among however many vendors they decide to include. So this is why it can be particularly scary when you walk out of your first demo or your first sales call with a client, potential client, I should say, and they say, yeah, we're also evaluating this technology and this technology. And the more they list, you're like, wow, that's just taking away from that percentage
7,
that I
4,
don't have.
3,
Exactly.
1%.
So I have, 2% of your total buying journey involved in how effectively I can communicate. Yeah. I mean, and this is actually, I love that this is kind of where we're going right now, because what it does is it naturally flows into, now we'll talk about the leadership side of things instead of the individual seller side of things. This is probably, I mean, it's definitely my biggest pain point.
Yeah.
But probably a very often pointed to pain point for a lot of business leaders, which is forecast accuracy. Like funnel, great. B2B sales funnel, we could spend all day talking about the evolution of the sales funnel, the evolution of the buyer's perspective, the evolution of cold prospecting versus warm prospecting versus inbound prospecting from MQLs. But really, at the end of the day, even if you do take that meeting, this is where the biggest change, in my opinion, has really flipped.
Yes.
Maybe you get past all of that noise and you take that first demo and you walk out of that meeting and you go, they were receptive, everything sounded good. Well, that's great, but that doesn't mean the same thing that it used to mean now. So when we forecast that, how do we effectively gauge the accuracy of that forecast? And what are some of the components that we need to be really receptive to that historically, maybe the better sellers were historically good at doing, but a lot of other ones could ignore because it wasn't as critical a part of the process. And so this is what I think of when I think of that is, let's say that we go through all of those steps and we're in a position now where you have a rep who's taken 20 meetings over the last 2 or 3 weeks. They're loading up their pipeline for the following month and they go, I got a good one coming. Like, oh man,
Classic.
I got so many great opportunities. I can't wait to tell you about them. You ask them about their forecast accuracy. I use the 90%, 65%, 50-50 method, right? Like which ones are going to close no matter what, which ones should close, but we need to influence the deal, and which ones are just coin flips.
Yeah.
How do you properly gauge the accuracy of that rep's excitement given the circumstance that they're in?
Proof.
Yes.
I think it's important to have the dialogue with them, and if they're using a lot of I feel like, I hope, and stuff like that language, then they probably don't know. And they probably aren't focused on, as Medbeck calls it, customer verifiable outcomes, what the customer says. So at least all of our meetings are recorded, of course with consent and everything.
Yeah.
But I think we need to get it in paper like that from the customer. Like what statements did they actually say when we asked them a question? Let's say we asked, okay, so how does your typical buying process look like? If that's ingrained into the way we sell, then it's more important what they answer and how they answer it. If it's just like a vague, it's typically like this, I don't know, something, and then a CFO, and then whatever. Is this person then a coach or a champion? Is he really going to go through fire for you to get this tool in? Doesn't sound too convincing. So I think, getting to know the 93% of the equation, so the tonality and the body language, which is the 93%, so 38% and 55% on body language, and then only 7% on words. When you are aware of that and see, okay, when I ask that question, and then I review the call again, what's the body language when I asked it? Is it reserved? Did they oh, my eye is oh, the price or whatever? You need to look for the subconscious things that aren't really in the words. Yes, they might have said, we do this process, but then they go to the coffee machine and their CFO is having coffee. And then it's like, hey, I have this tool that's super nice. Like, yeah, that's fine. We don't have money for it. Okay, bye. Oh. But then they go into a meeting again with the seller and like, oh yeah, I'm just working on it, It's, And that's also what we talked about, like how do we then enable them to have the conversations that are quality focused when we are not there, which is the majority of the time.
Yeah. Okay, so we're talking a lot about, like, obviously the ability for your sellers to influence the prospect enough in a positive direction, build trust, understand the business economy of who they're selling to, why the value proposition is going to work, whether the messaging fits, et cetera, et cetera. All of those, like, kind of baselines for sales, which hopefully most of the people who are in sales leadership have a good understanding of already. So we're not going to belabor the point, but really, I think what we're really coming to here is this has become more and more critical, because the big question is, how do we move deals much more effectively down the pipeline? What are the things that we should be looking at on a continuous basis? What are the hallmarks now in 2025 to say, great, we have 100 deals in our pipeline, and we know historically 10 of them are going to close. How do we increase that number to 20? Like, what are we doing there? I mean, I think one piece is enabling them to sell on your behalf,
100%.
right? That's how you move deals forward. Cultivate trust, enable them to sell on your behalf. But there's other pieces of that puzzle. So outside of that, which we've spent time on, like, and being able to effectively engage the other stakeholders, which I think is pretty universal as well. What are other things that you think kind of fit the bill, so to say, in taking that messy pipeline, taking that inaccurate forecasting, and creating, actual valid progression that's repeatable, giving a little bit more refined paint by numbers, to use the analogy from before?
I feel like we've been talking a bit about many things right now, and a lot of it for me comes down to complexity. We've been really good at adding stuff to everything that we do, and often for the sake of us as sellers, like, it would be nice to have this field in the CRM, and then it adds more complexity. What we probably should be looking into right now is taking away stuff. How do we simplify? How do we not optimize for us sellers, but how do we optimize for the buyer?
Right.
Yes. Right. What are the steps they need to do to buy? When does that need to happen? And how does that need to happen? Is it a demo? Like, that is also a dying thing, because people have been getting feature demoed all the day, all night, right?
It's interesting you say that, because this is actually another thing that was in that same statistic or same study that was done around the 17% buyer, is, like, increasingly, generationally, buyers are moving to a virtual only buying process where they don't even want to talk to anyone at all. Or if they do want to talk to you, they want to talk to you after they've qualified you instead of you qualifying them. This is huge. Not to interrupt, but it's a great point of reference. Absolutely.
And that's also back to what we talked about earlier, where the SDRs need to be making people aware of the problem they didn't know they had.
Yeah.
Then you're like, oh my God, what? This is critical. And that will get them to then take the next step, which is a demo, which is go to the website and do a product tour yourself, or whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of gurus out there telling us that sales is dying and salespeople will be out of fashion.
Yeah.
I think, like, the main topics of what we talked about today is that tools amplify us or they make us worse.
Yes.
I think right now we need to figure out what are the right tools for us to build on the foundation that we have. If we don't have a solid foundation, then maybe take a few more months and do more training, do more foundational stuff where you can really hone in on what the buyer journey looks like, how they think, how they buy, and all of that. I think it was Kevin Dorsey who did somewhat of a, like, you almost need to know the buyer so well that when they get home from work, you know exactly that they'll pick a red wine, they'll pour up the glass, and then they'll lay on the couch and say, oh God, I wish I didn't have to. And then you can finish the sentence.
Yeah.
I think we need to go back to those basics to really understand, like, what's the buyer really caring about, especially, like, your main persona, but also everybody around them.
Yeah.
There are probably more and more stakeholders coming into the conversations because of economic circumstances. We are a bit more risk averse these days. We need to calculate things a bit better. And that's also how you then would equip them during your, I wouldn't call it a sales process more. It's probably more a buying process where like this is groundbreaking. No, but I think we need to flip the table a bit.
Yeah.
It's not about us. It's about them, and it's really, for me, that's really basics, because feature dumping, that's about you understanding their situation, figuring out the problems, figuring out their frustration, frictions, and all of that. That's about them.
Yeah.
And when
But
you
it's
lead
also-
with them, that helps.
It's also traditional selling, right? And I think that one of the things that I really like this note. You know, the example of, you know, your buyer going home, cracking open some wine, leaning back. I really wish I don't have to, because really I think, and this is in an ever increasing technologically driven conversation around selling and buying. I mean, that is the hot button statement,
Exactly.
right? Like, technology is going to fix everything. Eventually, technology will make X, Y, Z redundant.
Yes.
Right? And I think what you're highlighting, if I'm understanding it correctly, but certainly what I would highlight in this case, is that if anything, the individual seller is more important than ever before.
Yes.
Because you can't have a technology, especially one without a foundation, you can't have a technology build rapport.
Nope.
With somebody. You can't have a technology understand nonverbal cues. I mean,
Yes.
you can maybe some. That statement is going to age like milk, right? But right now, definitely a person can do it, hopefully more effectively in many cases, especially a really talented salesperson. And so the human component is arguably more critical than ever before because there's so much noise.
Yeah.
But maybe the good way to ask this question as a follow-up would be, okay, if you had to identify kind of the two pillars that you did, which is the person product, what's critical from a seller that you have in terms of capabilities, knowledge, insight, how you create an actionable seller as a sales leader, and then what are your kind of can't miss, you know, you must have this foundation of technology in order to enable those people effectively. Like, what are those two for you? If I was going to give you just two rapid fire kind of questions like we did earlier.
So the people, when they are, you know, it's super basic. Like when you do more fun tasks that you actually enjoy, that gives you energy during the day. Yeah. Like obviously there will be boring stuff like putting stuff into the CRM and stuff like that. Yeah. You're generally more happy and you do more or better work, I would say. So with that in mind, like if you can create an environment around the person so the person doesn't go out of the sales process, meaning that what makes us unique as humans is that we are able to connect and we're able to have a rapport with each other and have that connection. Like you wouldn't have the same thing with AI. Like you can give it a lot of prompts, but it spits out a lot of things, and you'll probably also see a lot of like SDR sort of AI thing. You know, there was the thing that went a little sideways, something where they lied a bit, but that's another conversation where they tried to automate this. SDR.
I'm with you. Yeah, I understand.
Good.
Yeah.
But trying to figure out what makes us human is exactly the thing that we are missing in the buying process. Like, yes, I need a solution to the problem, but one of the key things that they are also considering is the person behind the scene who's going to help me when fire hits the fan. And like, is it just going to be an AI bot that is going to give me instant reply? Or are we actually going to go a bit more strategic in the conversation and say, okay, what's the really underlying issue here and how do we help that as a human being, connecting you with the right internal stakeholders so you can get the problem fixed?
Right. Okay. And the most critical technologies from your standpoint?
Call recording. You need a place to host all your data, like a CRM, for sure. You need some way to enrich your data to understand a bit more about your buyer, looking like what's happening there. Yeah. You need a place to get the buyer attention on one thing at a time, like something like get accept or any other.
That was a layup.
Element.
I was just waiting for you to say
I was like also trying to drag it out to see like how long. No.
Get accept.
But I think it's really important because we only present, like we talked about, at max 83% of the time. Probably more like 3% of the time because, like you said, they're probably also reviewing 5 other vendors. Right. Which also is a crazy situation in SaaS right now where it's just a red ocean everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, you're not unique.
Nope.
So what makes you unique?
You.
Right? You make
do.
you unique.
Yes.
Your ability to engage, your ability to do those
Yeah.
things. Okay, that's great. Those are great answers. Thank you. Let's kind of pivot into the end point here, right? Right. So just for the sake of re-reviewing here, we covered a couple different topics, and I think that most of it comes down to, really at the end of the day, what does the modern kind of buying funnel look like, and is the other one dead? So let's start there before anything else. In your opinion, is the B2B sales funnel, the traditional B2B sales funnel, is it dead? Is it evolved? Is it exactly the same? Like, where would you pinpoint that kind of standard linear path? And if it's not dead, how has it evolved, in your opinion?
I think it's misunderstood.
Misunderstood. It's the problem child of sales.
The problem child who thinks all the problem is about them, but they forget that there are other people in the room, and that's who it really is about.
That's great.
The buyer.
That's a great answer. Did you think of that one before? Or was that just top
popped
of mind?
into
That's
this
incredible.
brain of mine.
You wrote it down. It's on a whiteboard in your garage. Okay. That's good. Yeah, I think about it in the same way. I'll answer my own question as well.
Please.
I don't think it's dead at all. I do, however, think that the version that people think of is dead. I think that the traditional being the key kind of hallmark of that statement, it's very much dead and gone. I think that the way to think about it now is more like guardrails. These are guidelines. This is a path that helps you project. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, if the B2B sales funnel was dead, how would we forecast at all? What does a CRM stage progression of opportunity look like if the funnel is gone?
Yeah.
Right? And maybe that's my follow-up question. Let's assume that it is dead, right? How would we define in the current 2025 kind of framework of sales the funnel? I can't even use it anymore. How would we define opportunity progression from identification through actual close in 2025, if not through some version or iteration of the traditional funnel?
Yeah. It is very different from company to company. And it's probably more about figuring out the steps the buyer needs to take internally, externally, to actually make stuff happen. Like, what does that process look like? Right now, yes, they need to source the market, but there's a step that we talked about before that where they need to become aware of the problem that they didn't know they have. Which
is also a requirement now for the seller, where historically it wasn't. We need to educate them effectively that a problem even exists.
Yeah. I mean, you're not just going to do a cold call saying, hey, we do buyer enablement. Okay, yeah, let's sign up. Like, not happening. No. I'm sorry.
I mean, I'll take that call if it does
That used to be fine in 2020.
That'd be great.
Oh, great. What's that? Oh, curious.
The one call close. That'd be so interesting. Yeah, there's so few of those these days.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But that's also because deals are more complicated. There are more people involved. There are more people we don't know about that we will never get introduced to.
Yeah.
But they are still influencing the deal because they had a system 3 years ago that was excellent and they are biased towards that decision.
Yeah.
We don't know. But we can definitely, like we've also been talking about, it's a lot about the individual that, the salesperson. If they are really good at maneuvering in this, you almost have to see yourself as a bit of a project manager, trying to get the right people in at the right time, sharing the right things to the right stakeholders, which is also a big key point. Like, multi-threading is also a big topic. Yeah. Like, if you're just sending out email to 7 people and thinking that is multi-threading, then you're doing it wrong.
You're doing it wrong. Yeah.
It needs to be single threading each and every person on the call. So the technical resources go to the technical person. The commercial conversation goes with the right commercial people that can actually talk about the numbers and understand them and all of that.
Yeah.
So again, I think we are talking a bit about it in everything that we've been focused on today. It's the relevancy game.
Yeah.
Is this email going to be relevant for the people that I'm going to send it? Is this phone call going to be relevant for the people I'm calling?
Yeah. I think that one of the things I think about a lot too, you talk about stakeholder management. I think passive stakeholder management is a bigger thing than it's been before.
Yeah.
Do you even have to talk to those people for them to be engaged? Is there an ability for you to influence by providing them the information that they need, even if it goes through that single prospect at the coffee machine, for them to be enabled to make a proper decision that's well informed of course they can reach out, but passive influence can be sometimes just as powerful. And I think that this is a critical
Definitely.
kind of takeaway that I think about a lot. Okay. Let's talk about practical tips, right? Like at the end of the day, we have an audience. I kind of forgot that we had an audience. I enjoy the conversation
Oh
so
yeah,
much.
the cameras and all.
There's
Yeah.
people here listening to us talk about just things we'd probably talk about in a closed room. But what are practical takeaways? I mean, if you had to leave, let's say 3. Let's pinpoint it at 3, kind of critical takeaways that are kind of fundamentally centered around how do we properly engage with buyers in 2025 to meet them where they're at. Because I think that is kind of one of the core themes here. Is it's no longer force your way into a door that's not open, but instead think you're like a vampire, right? Someone has to invite you in order for you to do anything, right? You have to meet them where they're at. They have to let you into their home or their business. So how do you meet them where they're at, in 2025? And what are the best kind of, what's kind of the biggest takeaway there? What are your kind of baseline expectations in terms of forecasting and like stage progression? Like it's messy, it's ugly, we have a low conversion rate. Some reps enter information, way in advance and never disqualify. Some reps enter information only when the deal's about to close. They have a 100% success rate, which is obviously not accurate.
Yeah.
And then, what does that mean for you as a leader when you forecast?
Yes.
How do you take all of that messy kind of spaghetti forecasting that exists and put it into an actual tangible outcome? Those are the 3 that I think I would ask you. I can come back to them if you want, but those are the 3.
First one. We need to spend more time experimenting with quality. Instead of doing 100 dials per day, I think we need to do 30 really well-prepared ones where you spend a little extra time up front and you are not talking about yourself.
Okay.
So that's for how we get people in, especially cold. When we then get to the meeting, I think we need to go in with a mindset of, I'm here to figure their side of the table out and how we can best fit in, sort of say, and challenge them on the setup with the problems that they're not aware of. Try to then amplify the problems. And then, like most sellers, they show the solution way too early instead of actually staying with the problem, going a bit level deep in the discovery, spending more time with the problem, like figuring out the underlying reasons for that problem existing in the first place, and then also the root causes. Like nobody talks about that. Yeah. We need to go a bit deeper, not like, we want more revenue. Okay, what is more revenue, right? Like, what are the numbers?
What's the business impact?
Yeah, exactly.
Why is more revenue important? Like, of course, everyone always wants more revenue. That's an easy answer. But like, what's the fundamental driver?
Yeah, and then you have the driver. That's often the, what if we don't do anything? What if everything stays the same? Yeah. Like that is often the case where we're like, we can't really stay the same. Like everything is changing right now. AI is here. It's not going anywhere. Yeah. Process-wise, get hyper-focused on the buyer. Like, what do they do? What are their steps? What do they care about? Who do they talk to? Who do they not talk to? Who is influencing the deal? Like everything like that you can pin out during your buying process, not sales process. Yeah. That makes it easy to buy. So not adding, but trying to take away stuff that simplifies actually buying from you. And yes, you might have some enterprise deals where they need a lot of deep dive in the technical side or some different elements in the legal side or whatever it might be. Accommodate for it. Get to know it. That will also increase your forecasting. If you know that everybody has a legal review coming, but you don't have it somehow built in, or you don't have the support from creating the right T's and C's, doing the DPAs, having the certifications ready so they build trust, and that's good. And like they'll still do redlining. Yeah, of course. 100%. Yeah. But if you don't have that built in your process and don't have the support in the business to actually make it happen, it's going to be real hard to align any value. And then it's just going to be a misunderstanding. And it's going to take forever internally because you don't have the resources to support the buying journey that they actually have. Yeah. So it's not just sales. Like I always say, sales is not just a sales problem. Like bad sales is not just a sales problem. It's a company-wide thing. We all need to care about that, and we all need to like be there and help and support, and also vice versa, give feedback on how we can improve the process in between departments so the buying journey gets more fun.
Yeah, I like that. And what I like most about those is, I think thematically it fits really well, right? Let's cut the BS, right? It'd be very easy for us to get on, on screen, whatever, on a video like this and say, add this tool, add this technology, implement this process, make this change. But I think really the critical takeaways here are there's some fundamental stuff. And what we're doing is we're allowing that external noise to really create a lot of negative input and negative output, right? So the takeaways are educate your teams to be more thoughtful and introspective of a buyer's needs in order to effectively qualify opportunities and speak to the opportunities to meet the buyers where they're at. Simplify the communication internally and externally to make sure that we're focused on those things and willing to take the time necessary, assuming we do step one properly, to follow the buyer throughout their journey. Just because we have some deals that close in 2 weeks and we have some deals that close in 6 months doesn't mean every deal closes in 2 weeks, and it doesn't mean every deal closes in 6 months. The variation exists because buyers are different.
They are. And
we need to be comfortable with that. And I think this leads really naturally into the third point, which is we're talking about messy forecasting. We're talking about poor pipeline management. I think the biggest takeaway for me would be, and feel free to give me one of yours as well if I'm off base, but the biggest takeaway for me would be stop trying to fit them into a process. Buyers are not going to fit into a traditional process. There isn't a percentage that's going to uniformly apply in every single scenario, or even two scenarios right next to each other. And that's okay. It doesn't matter if one deal takes 6 months. If you're doing it the right way, when the deal comes and you're meeting the buyer where they're at and you're tracking, engagement and how effectively they're consuming the information that you're sharing with them, then it's more about confidence that you're doing the right things and that they're confident in your product than is this deal going to close tomorrow? If not, call them 30 times because we need them to sign now, kind of thing, which is very much an outdated, kind of antiquated mentality towards it.
I mean, that's a whole webinar in itself.
Anything you want to add to that?
I feel like it's the right thing. Like the whole topic of today has been heavily focused on relevance for me.
Good.
Like we need to stay relevant.
Yeah.
And you don't do that by adding another step into your CRM because it feels good.
Yeah.
And you like it. But it's probably more the opposite, where you ask yourself why. Why do we want to add this? Not for your sake, but for the customer to improve the buying process.
Yeah.
And if we have the customer eyes on everything that we do, like why should we even do a demo? Let's look into that, and then okay, they were actually able to see their problem in a context, in a solution. Okay, that makes sense. That's pretty cool. And we also be able to have that human dialogue with them and talk a bit about like what their priorities are, what they are focused on, and how they really see the world moving forward. And then we can assist them as a tool provider, so to say. So relevancy, 100%. That's the core thing in everything that we do. But relevance for the client or the buyer.
Exactly, not you
not
as
us.
a seller. But I mean, at the end of the day, buyers buy from people.
They do.
Sellers sell to people. And everyone has intrinsically their core motivations, their core objectives. And if we're not paying attention to that because we think that we should be following a model, we're missing something.
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Great. I mean, I think that is probably a really good stopping point. I really appreciate the conversation.
It's really good.
I feel like I got lost in it a little bit, which is good.
That happens.
We had people waving their hands at us in the corner, which is always a positive. With that, Alex, Hello Retail, get accept in case anyone wants to look us up online. Thank you so much for tuning in, listening to the Revenue Rebels webinar. And hopefully you got some proactive tips to take away and walk into another conversation and have a conversation at the coffee machine about things that you can do in your own business, because I know that I probably have. Thanks.